Hello there, people of the internet. So another conversation I was having with another buddy of mine. We were talking about handguns, actually, and we were talking about polymer versus metal framed handguns. And I was like, you know what, that would make a great idea for a video. So let's go ahead and talk about polymer frame versus metal framed handguns. I'm saying metal framed because I don't want to say steel frame, because there's a lot of handguns out there that are, comprised of alloy frames as opposed to having like a steel frame. Now, that being said, let's get into it. This right here is my Taurus G2C, which will be representing our polymer framed handguns. Of course, there's a ton of polymer framed handguns out there nowadays. You can get yourself just generic that everybody knows about, Glock. Everyone knows what a Glock is. Those are polymer framed handguns, and there's a lot of pros and cons between polymer frames. Or I have here a Ruger P89, which is an alloy frame, a metal frame handgun. Let's go ahead and talk about the pros and cons between the two. Now, one of the things I want to cover, we're not going to talk about capacity. I mean, there are steel frame handguns out there that have low capacity and steel frame that have high capacity. Well, I say steel frame. If I call it steel frame, I'm talking metal frame, including alloy frame, just because of what I'm used to saying. Bear that in mind. If I say steel frame, I really mean metal frame in general. But there are metal frame handguns out there that have low capacity and high capacity, like the 1911 has 7 rounds of 45 ACP, or the Ruger P89 right here, this holds 15 rounds, or our polymer frame right here, this particular one I think holds 12 rounds, or you can have yourself a Glock which holds, I don't know, 17 plus rounds depending on the magazine that you're getting. Or you could get yourself like a single stack. I know Smith & Wesson makes single stack 9mm that are polymer frame, very, very skinny little concealed carry handguns, and they only hold 7-8 rounds or something like that. So the actual capacity of the firearm doesn't matter whether or not it's steel frame or polymer frame. That being said, polymer frame handguns are typically used for like everyday and concealed carry situations because they are significantly lighter weight than your steel frame handguns. And it makes sense. Plastic is a less dense material than metal. As a result, a metal framed handgun is going to weigh significantly more than a polymer frame handgun, which is one of the reasons why people are going towards polymer frame handguns for everyday carry and concealed carry purposes and things like that. Just because they're so much lighter weight, you can get a larger size handgun with more capacity with a lower weight to make it easier to carry. Now, there's a couple of caveats of having a lighter weight handgun. If you have less weight and less mass to absorb recoil, then you are going to feel more felt recoil whenever you pull the trigger. For example, 9mm out of this much lighter weight Taurus G2C kicks way harder than 9mm, the same exact cartridge, out of this much heavier frame, much heavier handgun, Ruger P89. Now, this is a larger handgun. I'd say it's more along the lines of the size of a 1911, rough estimations, give or take, whereas this right here is definitely more of a concealable handgun. But if this right here, we had a handgun of equal size with a steel frame, it would be substantially more heavy than this particular one that has a polymer frame on it. Both of these have the same style of locking systems in them, so the polymer frame is not going to be an attribute to a specific kind of locking system. That is more of the mechanical system of the firearm. So the polymer frame, lighter weight, easier to carry around just because it's lighter weight. It is more difficult to shoot because the recoil will be harsher. Now, I want to say that polymer frame handguns, we don't know how they're going to hold up over time. There are firearms nowadays that are 150, 200 years old, which can still be shot regularly as long as you're using proper ammunition and they're in safe firing order. But they can still be shot regularly because they are built incredibly well, and the materials that they're built out of don't deteriorate. Well, I don't know about you, but living in the state of Florida, I have seen plastic grow brittle and crack and deteriorate significantly within just a couple of decades. So polymer framed handguns, I don't know how long they're going to keep, and I don't know how, like, they might degrade faster than we might think. Here in the next 50 years or so, there might be polymer framed handguns that are so brittle and cracked up, I hear a dog barking in the background, that are so brittle and cracked up that they might become to the point that they are unsafe to shoot. We just don't know. That's, you know, future speculation. Do I have company? Is that why the dogs are barking? I don't see anybody. I'm going to assume they're barking at like a squirrel or an armadillo or something. Whereas metal does not deteriorate the same way that plastic does. I mean, it can like rust and pit and whatnot, but plastic, just from like heat and whatnot, will grow brittle and actually break apart, especially under something like the force of recoil of a handgun. But metal does not have that issue. We have handguns that are, you know, from the 1800s, 1700s, even, that we still see are in shootable working order. I actually saw somebody who took a time appropriate correct flintlock muzzle loading handgun, and they brought it out to the range and they put a couple of rounds through it. And this particular one was from like the 1770s. He said it was from the American Revolution during that time period. Now, I'm not sure how true that statement is, but I can, you know, vouch for saying that it was an incredibly old handgun, and albeit it was metal and wood and flintlock, it was still holding up very, very well to the test of time. Of course, we see semi-automatics from the 1800s that are still in working order. Look at the C96 broom handle Mauser. Those are very desirable and sought after, and there's still people putting plenty of rounds through those. And those are semi-automatics from the 1800s, but they're all metal and there's no plastic on them because this technology simply did not exist. Nowadays, the technology does exist, and we don't know how long these are going to hold up. So just bear that in mind. You might be getting yourself something that doesn't turn into a family heirloom, like, for example, a Colt's 1873 pattern. If you had something like that that was bought by great-great-grandpa back in, you know, the Western days and passed down along family generations, then hey, that's absolutely a family heirloom. But if you have, you know, me and you who go out and buy a Glock 19, and you and I want to pass it down through, you know, family generations, and that Glock 19 or Glock 17 or insert polymer framed handgun here, that polymer framed handgun might not hold up as well as the wood and steel that would have been inside of the Colt 1873. I got to remember my year designations with those. I almost called it a 97. I'm like, no, that's not right. But a Colt 1873. Now, nowadays, we'd be like, it's just a Glock. It's not going to be a family heirloom. Nobody would ever think of that being a family heirloom. It's just too common. Well, the 1873 was like the Glock back in the day. They were so common and so predominant over absolutely everywhere. Nobody back then would have thought of that being a family heirloom, but here we are, you know, 2 centuries later. I almost said 2 decades, 2 centuries later, and yeah, those are absolutely family heirlooms. So who knows what's going to happen with these? I know I don't. So I got a couple of rounds in these. Let's go ahead and send some rounds downrange. I want to see just how different the recoil is between the polymer frame and the steel frame. These are the same exact rounds, tool ammo, 9mm, 115 grain. I can't remember where this thing shoots. I think it hits a little low. Let's find out. Yep, sure seems to hit a little low. All right. Well, we're still making hits on target. This right here, the barrel on this one is a lot shorter than that steel frame as well, so it's probably going to be less accurate. That said, we're still nailing our target at, you know, the 35, 40 yards that we're at. Actually, we're doing it pretty easily, too. Alright. So, I am noticing this Taurus did not lock open on the last round fired. This right here is Taurus budget gun. That is not indicative to polymer frame handguns. But it does refresh my memory on a good caveat. Polymer frame handguns tend to be much cheaper than metal frame handguns just because the polymer frame is a molded piece. It's just very easy to manufacture the polymer frame for a handgun as opposed to having to mill out something like a metal frame for a handgun. Now, there are casting processes and whatnot done for metal frame handguns. For example, this alloy handgun on this Ruger 89, P89 right here, is a cast part, and that does help with the price point of the firearm. This particular firearm has always been incredibly affordable firearm. I don't want to call it cheap because it's actually a pretty well-built firearm, but an incredibly affordable firearm. And then you'll see things like High Points, which are a molded alloy frame, which are incredibly cheap as well. But there's, you know, certain reasons as to why they're so cheap. Just they're a straight blowback. There's no delaying system, no locking system, no anything like that. But that's a topic for another time. The metal frames on those and on these definitely are an attribution, am I saying that word right? To the durability of the handguns. And anyone who's ever had a Ruger P series knows just how damn durable these things are. Now this is going to not recoil nearly as much as that other one did. It's also a much larger handgun and the grip is much more comfortable. But this one also seems to shoot a little low. Of course, I was aiming center target and I hit a little low. There we go. That's more like it. Man, this is actually a pretty accurate little handgun. I'm knocking them like way more center than I was for the Taurus over there. I say as I miss, but that was me. I pulled that one. My eyes aren't focusing the way I'd like them to. Okay. Whew. I gotta let my eyes calm down. I can't see all that well, and I'm really starting to blur whenever I'm staring at that front sight post. So, okay. This particular one does have a decocker on it and an external hammer. That's not indicative to the frame. We're just talking about the frames themselves. So as a good summary of the entire video, these right here, cheaper, easier to produce, not as durable as metal, especially in the long term, but they're lighter weight and easier to carry with you versus these, which are much more durable. They'll last a lot longer, maybe. We'll see how polymer holds up over the next century. They tend to be a little bit more on the expensive side unless you're getting yourself something that has been cast. Those are less durable than something that has been milled, but the price point does reflect on that. I mean, you get what you pay for. So thanks for watching, folks. I'm eager to hear what you guys have to say about this one in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share, description, bunch of links. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I'm gonna go grab something to drink because I am tired and thirsty and hungry. And my camera's dying. I probably should let that charge before I make another video, but I'm probably not gonna. You guys go off, have a fantastic day. I will see you guys on the next video. Since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.